Welcome back to segment 2 with Arthur Neslen. Arthur is a British journalist and he's the author of Occupied Minds. Welcome back, Arthur.
Thanks for having me.
Arthur, in Occupied Minds, you explore the Israeli psyche. And this election campaign was very pertinent to the Israeli psyche and the rise of the right, and also it was a highly racialized campaign. Would you like to comment on that in terms of what is the current Israeli psyche that elected this government into power?
Well, it's a highly racialized society. I mean, I think most election campaigns in Israel are, racially charged. The difference this time has been the emergence of Lieberman, Avigdor Lieberman of the Pt.2 party as a major player on the national scene. If you look back over the history of Israel's wars, of Israel's elections, I don't think Lieberman is as far off the map as he has been presented. There's been a lot of talk about, is this a new kind of fascism? Is this this is an extremist right-wing phenomenon? But what Lieberman is suggesting with his no citizenship, no loyalty test is extremely racist by all accounts. But it's not that far off what other politicians have suggested. Tzipi Livni, during this election campaign, said when the Palestinian state is created, I'll be able to go to Palestinian citizens who we call Israeli Arabs and say to them, you are residents with equal rights, but your national solution is in another place. Ehud Olmert has also said similar things during, I think it was in 2006, he went to London and said that Europeans knew from historical memory that territories were exchanged, that populations were even moved sometimes, that territorial adjustments were made in order to create better circumstances for a peaceful solution. And he added, in one format or another, in one manner or another, at the end of the day, we'll have to find ways to do it here. The idea of transferring the political citizenship rights of Israel's Arab citizens to the West Bank, and particularly to the West Bank, actually, and physically transferring the Little Triangle is dead center. It's the dead center of Israeli politics. The Herzliya conferences for several years have been talking about this. Lieberman isn't, going out on a limb by this. Ariel Sharon, has talked about it. I think it's important not to misunderstand Israeli society. It's fundamentally racist, in my opinion.
How does Lieberman's proposal for this taking an oath of citizenship for Palestinian Israelis play out in this election?
I think it won him some support, amongst his constituency, which is very alienated and marginalized ethnic populist polity. The Russian community in Israel, which arrived in what's known as the Great Aliyah in the late 80s, early 90s, saw themselves as a very educated, very cultured, very sophisticated section of the population. They were the children of Tolstoy and Dostoevsky. They were scientists and doctors and musicians and artists, and yet when they came to Israel, they were treated as primitive, aggressive drunks who probably weren't even Jewish, and it created a huge dissonance. There's been a tradition within Israeli society that Olim Hadashim, new immigrants, win their spurs within Israeli society, prove their Israeliness by racism and violence. The Mizrahim, the Arab Jews who were initially distrusted because they were seen as being too close to the Arabs, proved their Israeliness by becoming one of the most, anecdotally, this is what you find, one of the most racist sections of Israeli society, even though they're one of the most discriminated against. Holocaust survivors also in 1948, again anecdotally, were some of the most brutal fighters because they had to prove they hadn't gone like sheep to the slaughter. The religious establishment, again, was seen as weak and cowed ghetto Jews. Who bore a great deal of the responsibility for the Holocaust. They transformed themselves into hilltop religious bigots, and there is a pattern here which repeats over and over again, and the Russian community is only the latest stage of this. And what what Lieberman has mobilized seems like a racist mass, if you're looking from the outside. But as well as everything else, they also have demands which are not racist, such as to be allowed civil marriage between Jews and non-Jews within Israel. Israel is one of the only countries that doesn't allow civil marriages. In fact, perhaps it is the only country that doesn't allow civil marriages between, on the basis of ethnicity and religion. That they want economic help, because their communities have been hit hard by unemployment and poverty. Again, this is something which could actually dovetail with the left agenda. I would expect Tzipi Livni to opportunistically make moves in this direction. I mean, I think the case has been overplayed. What I think is important about it is that it's whenever Lieberman speaks, it sounds an alarm call, because he does look like a buffoon, and he does look like a racist authoritarian, and it will make it much more difficult if he's in a government with Tzipi Livni for Tzipi Livni to implement some of the sort of policies which he espouses and which she has also espoused and would probably support.
Many people have actually referenced that the occupied areas, they have drawn a comparison between the occupied areas and the actual Jewish ghettos from history. Do you think that resonates with the Israeli psyche?
Israel was created in the aftermath of the Holocaust. There was this idea, that Zangwill and Ruppert and others put forward of the new Jew, this muscular, bronzed paramilitary, blonde-haired, blue-eyed in a lot of the iconography of the time, and this was the antidote for the weak and trembling ghetto Jew who went like a sheep to the slaughter in the gas chambers. There was something called the kurituch, which was literally means a melting reactor, but in practice was used to mean a melting pot, a way of ridding these new Jewish immigrants to the Israeli state of their old Jewish identities, which were corrupted and compromised and effeminate. In their place, there would be this new militaristic Jew who would defend their attachment to the soil with their blood. As blood and land sort of theme. The Holocaust is quite central, because a large part of Israeli history has been based on denying the reality of the victimhood of the Holocaust, while at the same time projecting a lot of the demons which arose from that period onto the Palestinians. And there are an awful lot of parallels in terms of what Israel is doing with past periods in which Jews have suffered persecution.
Donate today and receive a new documentary film available to members of the Real News Network. The History of the National Security State with legendary author Gore Vidal. Bonus features of the DVD include an in-depth response to Vidal from ex-CIA analyst Ray McGovern, who served under 7 U.S. presidents, an exclusive interview with Colin Powell's former Chief of Staff Larry Wilkerson, and an insightful interview with oil policy analyst Antonia Juhas.
The news magazine of the screen. Living glimpses of history in the making.
Hollywood and Washington is a symbiotic relationship. They both deal with illusions. Reality doesn't often play much of a part. I think I saw through the myth of the Cold War almost from the beginning. I was a Washington political kid from a political family. Roosevelt first had radio because he had this great speaking voice and everyone liked to hear. Truman proceeded to break every arrangement that Roosevelt had set up for a peaceful coexistence. And Truman thought that it would be a good idea. Why not just stay armed all the time? And then he devised the national security state. You've got to go up and swear allegiance to the United States or else you're a commie. I mean, we had imported fascism. We get Dwight Eisenhower, who said that we have this great military industrial complex. It is a dangerous thing. And he said this is going to change everything. And the way our country's governed is going to change us politically. Along comes Jack Kennedy, wanted to make his mark, believed in the Cold War. But he said, in this kind of politics, it is the appearance of things that matters. I think everybody should take a sober look at the world about us. The national security state still exists, only it isn't communism anymore, it's terrorism. This is the most serious thing that has happened in the history of the United States. Knowledge is power. We need an honest news system.
We need the real news.
This is the sort of thing we can build right now without anyone else's permission from the government or from the business community. It's the power's in our hands.
If we're not going to sleepwalk into more wars, we think we need to start with a television news network that won't bow to pressure and has the courage to seek facts. And that means independent economics. And that's why we need you.
Make a tax-deductible donation now of at least $10 a month or a one-time give of at least $75. As a thank you for your support, we will send you the new documentary film, The History of the National Security State.